What was your dream? What you want to be when you grow up? I may have answered like a chef, a pianist, or a business person. But illustrator was never on my list. So here's my art journey. Hi, my name is Toshi. I'm a character designer and illustrator working in animation and children's book industries. I got a question about when and how I started my art journey. Then I realized I've never introduced myself properly in detail before, and I know that every artist has different path of becoming who they are as artists now, and I think I have a different and somehow unique path of becoming who I am as artist. So I'm hoping this video will be somewhat helpful and inspiring to some of you guys maybe. So enjoy. So where do I start? I was born and raised in Japan, more specifically in Mie Prefecture. It's a bit of countryside, and it's actually where I'm currently living to help out my family. So compared to big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto, there are not much of like art galleries or museums nearby, so not many people here have access to art in general. You may think that most artists working in the art business or the animation industry have been always interested in like some sort of art since they are age of 5 or 6, maybe even younger. And especially in Japan, there are mangas and animes, and people often guess the Japanese are surrounded by those popular cultures since they are kids. And that is true, but I wasn't just like that at all. I was more into sports and athletic type of kid, and so was my entire family. And actually there was no one in the family did any sort of art before me. So, and I may surprise you, but I've never read mangas in my entire life. I may have flipped a page or two, but I never bought mangas. I never grew up with it. So I was the kind of eccentric one even in my family. So therefore I had never held a pencil or any drawing tool aside from being classroom or doing homework when I was a kid. Not that I didn't like to draw anything, but I was just so bad at it. And in Japanese elementary school, I don't know if every school does it, but we have like annual planner event / competition that every student has to participate in. It was actually quite a torture for me to do any sort of like painting. We have to do the painting in a scene, like in a park or something. But at the time I had no idea what I was doing, so it was torture. And as a matter of fact, like I even ended up getting the worst grade for my mandatory art class when I was 13 or 14 in middle school. Even for me that was a quite shock, and still I remember it was the 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 or maybe 1 or 2 out of 10. So that was quite surprising. So with my background I just mentioned, I would never believe myself going to art school, and probably you wouldn't either, but I did, and let me tell you why. So I had chronic diseases since early age, and first I was probably 6 or 7, I suffered from asthma, and which I'm still taking the meds for. And the next was when I was 12. I went to the hospital with my mom, and I was immediately admitted, and I had to spend 2 months in a hospital. That was the kidney that I suffered from. So let me go back a little bit. Elementary school, we had a English class once a week. It was more of a conversational thing, not really a grammar or anything. So I was always interested in English, even at that point somehow. But I was getting really serious and interested in English when I was junior high. We say junior high in Japan, but middle school and high school. My English grade was better than any other subjects throughout my school life, and that's kind of when I was drawn into an idea of working abroad. And since then, I was always interested in working abroad, and also some sort of the film industry as well. So when I entered high school, I moved to Tokyo with my family, and so there were many other students that speak well and do well in English, and that was surprising because in my middle school, none of my classmates spent some time in other countries, but in my high school, there were lots of other students that spent some time in other countries like the US or the other Western countries, or maybe some Asian countries. So they might have gone to the international school, so they spoke English very well. That kind of inspired me to study more English, and so when I was second year in high school, is that correct way to say that? Probably in the US it's junior in high school, but that's when I went to kind of a school trip with other students, probably 20 other students, to spend one summer in Indiana in the US. So I was with the host family for 3 weeks. So I probably put the pictures somewhere here, and so that was the longest that I spent in a different country other than Japan. So because of my condition, my health situation, I never thought of going abroad for a longer period of time. My homestay program, that was 1 month, but I thought that would be it, and I never thought of going longer program, 4-year university in the US or other countries. That was never a choice at the time. So the idea of working abroad and maybe in a film industry, that idea stayed somewhere in my mind for a long time, but I made up my mind to go to 4-year college in Japan and majoring politics, believe it or not. I was genuinely interested in that subject, so I never regret the choice that I made. I even ended up interning for a non-government organization once, so it was a great time. So time had passed, and in my junior year in college, I was able to stop taking the meds for my kidney, And that's when it hit me that I could explore the options of my future. You may not know this, but junior year in Japanese college usually means that students start job hunting. You might guess that I was kind of avoiding the job hunting and going abroad was just an excuse. Honestly, I have to admit that it was kind of affecting my choice at the time. So when I decided, it was a tough thing to ask for my parents' permission, especially since it was completely different area to study, and they knew that I was never good at drawing growing up. But I persuaded them like piles of paper. They didn't know so I'm rambling here, but basically my parents' concern was the money. If I could draw for a living, so I explained that how the industry works in the other countries, like in the US and other mainly in the US compared to here in Japan, because the salary in Japan working for those like anime industry and in manga industry is seemingly low. You probably know. So that's their concern at the time, and they still don't know exactly how I make money, but I just needed to persuade them to it's a real job. So anyway, still they must have had huge doubt in me to like succeed in the US, but they were so generous to send me over to art school. After all, I have to admit that I'm privileged because of the money situation, and I was very fortunate to have this choice, and I know that not everybody has this luxury, so I'm very thankful and grateful for my parents, and I can't thank enough to them for believing in me and supporting me all the way. Why animation? Yeah, you probably think that if I choose animation as a career, why didn't I go to the school in Japan? Like, I got questions like that a lot when I went to the school in San Francisco. Like I mentioned, I was hospitalized quite a lot of times when I was a kid, like probably a dozen times, and I got sick a lot as well when I was growing up. So I spent a lot of time in my bed watching TVs. So back in 90s, there were no streaming service, of course. So I rented out movies or like TV cartoons, and I was not into, but I was more into like Western cartoons, like Cartoon Network and like Hanna-Barbera. So one cartoon that was very my best, like my favorite of all time, was the Wacky Races from Hanna-Barbera. I watched like repeatedly, and I read it many times from the video store. So that was probably how I was drawn into the Western animation rather than the Japanese cartoon or Japanese anime studios. And because of my background that I didn't read mangas, I'm not still able to draw like mangas, and I was definitely into more like Disney inspired and like all those like Pixar, DreamWorks, all that stuff. That was kind of what I wanted to do for the future. There was no options of going to Japanese anime school at that point, and because of my enthusiasm of like speaking English, that adds to that as well. So since I decided to go to art school, there's no going back, like giving up. So I had to pour everything I had, time and energy, into crafting my artwork. So my school was in San Francisco. It's called Academy of Art. You maybe know the school, but at the time it was, the San Francisco. It was very beautiful city to just wander around and walk around, and there were lots to explore. But my time was kind of limited, and I had to catch up quite a lot with my other students because they were better in terms of the skills. My skills were the lowest of the law when I entered the school. So I barely went outside except going to school, and I was working and working, and I don't know how many all-nighters I had to pull, which I definitely do not recommend doing to anyone. Do not pull all-nighters. So over the course of 2.5 years, I thought I made a huge progress considering, but I wasn't good enough to stay and work in the US. I knew that there were only slightest chance to make it in the US as a foreigner because of the visa, but I had friends from school that are foreigners still working in the major studios in the US, so they were amazing even when they were students, so I had no doubt them to succeed in the US. So I may have been good enough, but I wasn't the best. So after graduation, I wasn't able to get work straight out of school. I did manage to get some work from time to time, kind of like design jobs, not directly related to animation, which I wanted to work in the first place, but it was hard. I didn't even get an internship or the training program. So during the tough time after graduation, I was constantly making the artwork and updating the portfolio. So to work at the Dream Studios as a visual development artist was the only thing that got me going and fueled my motivation at the time. Even so, my visa in the US was about to expire, so I had to leave the US. At the time, I was probably 26, I think, and I was still qualified for the working holiday visa in Canada. So I left for Canada and stayed in Vancouver for a year because the working holiday visa allowed me to stay there for a year and to work in anywhere. So I had miscellaneous jobs, still like design jobs, illustration or somewhat related to animation, but not quite what I was expecting. But towards the expiration of the visa, I was finally able to break into the animation industry. The studio that contacted me was the Triggerfish Animation Studios. They are located in Cape Town, South Africa. At the time, they were looking for someone, or they were recruiting for a team for the animated feature. So I was hired as a freelance visual development artist to work on that animated feature named Steel Team, which is currently on Netflix. So if you'd like to watch, go to Netflix. And anyway, it was so exciting to finally get a foot in the door and work as a designer for a movie. I was mainly designing for the environment for the film, but I was asked to do some rough character designs for the film as well, so it was great. It lasted about 6 months, and during the time my visa in Canada was about to expire, so I decided to finally go back to Japan and accepted the fact I failed to accomplish what I dreamed of. Fortunately, I was still on the contract for the movie and I was able to work remotely from Japan. Though my role at the Triggerfish was more of an environment designer, I was getting more interested in character design, so I was kind of shifting to focus on characters in terms of portfolio. So I was kind of making a lot of random character sketches at that time and post on Instagram, Twitter, like every social media I had at the time. From then on, I was contacted more and more for different opportunities as character designer, kind of out of nowhere, like Netflix and DreamWorks and other like commercial studios like Passion Pictures and so on. I was often told the first job was the hardest to land on. In my case, that was correct. Working in the animation industry or any other like entertainment industry, word of mouth spread first. So if you are trying to break into the industry and you got a great skill set, be nice to work with. I tell this my students all the time, but my advice is this. I was never a drawing person until I decided to want to be one. It was definitely not an easy path, but if you try as best as you can and as hard as you can, and if you're genuinely passionate about your craft, I believe that hard work pays off in the end. So keep doing what you're doing. It may not lead you to where you want to be in no time, but I strongly believe that you could eventually get there. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know that not everybody can relate to what I experienced, but I hope this video will give you some sort of inspirations or insight to you guys. So anyway, if you haven't, please consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one. Maybe a vlog. Bye. So how I branched out to illustrating picture books is for another time. So stay tuned.